Hello everyone. Today I'll continue with the poem Preludes. In the earlier video, I had covered the first and the second section of this poem, and today I'll deal with the third and the fourth section of this poem. So let's begin with the third section. I'll first read out the section, and then I'll deal with the word meanings, and later on with the explanation of these lines. So I'll first read out the lines of this section. You tossed a blanket from the bed, you lay upon your back and waited. You dozed and watched the night revealing the thousand sordid images of which your soul was constituted. They flickered against the ceiling, and when all the world came back and the light crept up between the shutters, and you heard the sparrows in the gutters, you had such a vision of the street as the street hardly understands. Sitting along the bed's edge, where you curled the papers from your hair or clasped the yellow soles of feet in the palms of both soiled hands. First line, you tossed a blanket. Tossed means you threw a blanket. Now here probably Eliot is speaking in the second person, and this second person might be a woman. Most probably he's speaking about a woman, and in particular about a prostitute. He has not exactly used this word, but there are hints in this section wherein we can infer that he is referring to a prostitute. Then, in the third line of this stanza, you dozed. Dozed means to sleep lightly. Sordid images in the next line, sordid images. Sordid means very unpleasant or dirty images, of which your soul was constituted. Constituted means it was made up of, it was formed up of. They flickered. They means the images. Okay, the images, the sordid images, flickered. Flickered means trembled or fluttered. Then come to the end of this section. Or clasped the yellow soles of feet. Clasp means to hold tightly. Okay. Now, Prelude 3 startles the reader by an abrupt change of tone, a direct address to us saying you tossed a blanket from the bed. This time the focus is on lying awake at night, unable to sleep. Now, as I told you earlier, probably Eliot is talking about a woman, a prostitute. And Eliot's woman or prostitute in this particular section thinks confusedly of last night and all the nights. As he mentions, the thousand sordid images. The light creeps up with the dawn in between the shutters, and the sparrows begin to chirp. As the woman sits up in bed nursing her yellow feet with dirty hands, and then takes the curling papers out of her hair, she remembers the street of the night before where she tramped soliciting customers. Her vision of the street is one that the street by daylight cannot understand, or rather will not understand because it does not choose to. You had such a vision of the street as the street hardly understands. Generally speaking, when we are awake throughout the whole night, many unpleasant thoughts come in and we feel different about the outside world. Meanwhile, other people are ignorant about our thoughts and are blissfully happy and asleep. The dark soul of the night hovers around us. We see the actual world of pain and despair and indifference. However, every morning we have to get up to accomplish the routine life. So we see that here in this particular section of the poem, the speaker returns to the listener, the person or people he referred to as you in the first stanza. He uses this person to depict a general course of action taken by a normal resident of a city. It begins with a return to night. This person, particularly is speaking about a woman who throws off her blanket but does not get out of the bed. She lays there and stares at the ceiling, waiting and dozing, and meditating on all the sordid or distasteful images of the night. Finally, the world and the morning light creeps back in again. It gets rid of the terrible images that came straight from the soul. It is at night that these undefined, morally corrupting thoughts take place. The speaker describes how the soul of this woman is constituted or made up of the terrible images of night, the sordid images. She can hear the sparrows moving not in trees but in the gutters of the buildings. The speaker states that she can imagine the street in a way, or she imagines the street rather, in a way that the street itself could not understand. So she has an entirely different picture of the street. Okay, and this is due to the experience she had during the last night, or over thousands of nights, past nights. It is not entirely clear that what Eliot meant in these lines, but perhaps he was thinking about how one's own image of the world makes the world what it is. One's emotions influence how the world seems at any given time. Finally, this woman in this narrative sits up in the bed. In this position, she takes up the newspapers and she uses them. She used these newspapers to curl her hair. So now she's taking out those newspapers from her hair. It appears that this particular woman is actually not at ease in the morning because of her experience or because of the past night. There is a great deal of dirt and grime left over from the day before. This emphasizes the fact that new day does not wipe away what has passed. There is grime on the main subject's hands, on this woman's hands and feet, even though the day is just beginning. So, all in all, we can say that Eliot, as a modern poet, has given a very dark picture of a modern city life. And the profession of prostitution is quite common in cities. And here, not directly, but indirectly, he is probably referring to a prostitute in this third section. Now let's move on with the fourth section of this poem. I'll first read out the section to you. His soul is stretched tight across the skies that fade behind a city block, or trampled by insistent feet at 4 and 5 and 6 o'clock, and short square fingers stuffing pipes and evening newspapers and eyes, assured of certain certainties. The conscience of a blackened street, impatient to assume the world. I am moved by fancies that are curled around these images and cling. The notion of some infinitely gentle, infinitely suffering thing. Wipe your hands across your mouth and laugh. The worlds revolve like ancient women gathering fuel in vacant lots. First, let us do the word meanings. The third line of this section, or trampled by insistent feet. Insistent means continuing for a long time. Okay. Then in the fifth line, and short square fingers stuffing pipes. Stuffing means filling the pipes. Then after two more lines, he speaks about the conscience. Conscience means the moral sense of a person. But here he is speaking about the conscience of a blackened street. Blackened means probably he is talking about a sinful street. Impatient to assume the world. Assume means to accept the world. I am moved by fancies, the images, the imaginations. So here, Eliot is trying to give a personal touch to the poem towards the end of the fourth section and end of this particular poem. Around these images and cling. Cling means clutch or hold on. The notion. Notion means the idea or image. Now, in the concluding two lines, he says, the worlds revolve like ancient women gathering fuel in vacant lots. Ancient women, and then he is linking it to the modern life. So he is all in all talking about the life cycle of an individual. He's talking about the meaningless existence of a person, wherein a person continues to live following a set routine, a monotonous routine in his or her life. So life, with every passing day, life also passes, but nothing changes in an individual's life in the city. He or she has to follow a set routine in his or her life. Okay. So Prelude 4 moves to the street itself, which is personified again. The street lies like a collapsed body tramped over by insistent feet, the feet of the office workers returning at 4 and 5 and 6 o'clock. It is evening again. The opening line reminds us of the Prufrock image of the patient etherized on the table. The scene is again suggested by a few deftly drawn lines, short square fingers, stuffing pipes, evening newspapers. In the last 7 lines, you have the only direct commentary by the poet on the scene, and the commentary is self-contradictory and deliberately baffling. First, Eliot tells us that he is moved by fancies built up around these images of the city streets, images that make him feel deep pity for human suffering, for the sufferings of the gentle, innocent people, as one might pity the prostitute or the wretched poor of the great city. Then he deliberately invites us to sneer at this show of sentiment when he says, wipe your hand across your mouth and laugh. So after presenting all the sordid pictures, pathetic pictures, now he asks us to wipe our mouth and laugh. Whatever life brings to us, we have to continue to live with a smile on our face. The universe is indifferent to all our sufferings. The stars shine still. Things remain same. The world keeps on moving round. There is no escape from the routine, from the monotonous everyday life of modern man in the city. You get up, you go to work or school, you come home, you try to sleep, and you get up again to do the same things. This image of Preludes is an important precursor to Eliot's poem Waste Land. The world revolves like ancient women gathering fuel in vacant lots. The words vacant lots takes us back to the image of Prelude 1, where he talks about the newspapers. Now the desolate scene is humanized, if only by the disrepute old women looking for wood for the fire. It is significant that the human characters who stand out in the poem are these ancient women, and the scruffy prostitute of Prelude 3. The fourth section of Preludes is the longest of the four and begins with a 9-line stanza. The stanza includes another mention of the soul. This is one of the most important images of the piece. The soul belongs to a man. It has been personified. It is in the sky and it is in the city itself. One can find it being trampled by insistent feet at various times, at 4, 5, 6 o'clock. Although it is unclear whose soul this is or what kind of soul it is being ignored. It is stretched, the soul is stretched tight, trying to remain solvent, while also being subjected to the pounding of thousands of feet as men and women race to get to work, home, and to work again. This is a larger metaphor for the way that what is right and moral is ignored and damaged by the demands of everyday life. This makes it seem as though the soul does not belong to just one person, but is perhaps representative of the world as a whole. In the next lines, the speaker depicts the soul as the conscience of a blackened street. Eliot's depiction of a soul is impatient. It wants to assume the world, to accept the world, and hold greater influence over those who normally trample it. Now, the speaker describes that how he is moved by the fancies that occurred around these images. His involvement in this narrative allows one to take a more hopeful approach to what is being described. When he looks out on the grimy, smelly city streets, he is able to hold on to the notion, the idea of some infinitely gentle thing that moves around. This could be a general feeling of grace, goodness, or the physical impact of what listening to one's soul could do. But in the final 3 lines of Preludes, the speaker returns to second person and asks the reader to wipe their hand across their mouth and laugh. This is a return to the previous image of time going nowhere. He describes the world as revolving endlessly and as history repeating itself. The ancient women comes again and again to gather fuel in vacant lots. The speaker wants the reader to look on the world and see it for what it is, but not despair. One needs to embrace their own soul, see hope in the future, and laugh when they can. It is not clear whether or not the speaker sees the world as changing and becoming any less grimy anytime soon. So, in these two sections, the third and the fourth section, we have personifications, we have images of a woman and a man. What we conclude from these 4 sections, after going through these 4 sections of Preludes, this particular poem Preludes, we get to know that Eliot is a true modern poet wherein he has used exquisite imageries to create an atmosphere of the modern city life. Throughout the poem, we see that there is hardly any positive wave, positive stroke in this particular poem, whether it is section 1, 2, 3 or 4. So this particular poem is full of imageries. It is full of modern city life images, and in a very subtle manner, Eliot has brought out the dark side of modernity or modern life. Very unpleasant images have been presented here in these 4 sections of the poem. He has represented the urban life, the city life, and this chain of 4 poems are very artistically woven together. If we go through the entire poem, we'll find out that how these four sections are well knitted. So this is all for the explanation of the poem Preludes. In the next video, I'll be giving you the summary of this poem once again, and also some points regarding the critical appreciation of this poem. That's all for this video. Thank you.